The woman in the blue coat did not learn your name by accident. She heard it last Tuesday. And the moment your name was spoken, she knew the person sitting across from her had been hiding something enormous. Something about you. Something they had never been brave enough to say directly. But here is the part nobody expected. The woman already knew one detail about you before they finished speaking. She knew the date. She knew the place. And she knew there was a reason your soulmate had never truly let you go. Listen closely. Because if you leave before the final revelation, you will miss the one detail that makes every strange coincidence in this story suddenly make sense. This is not about chasing someone. It is not about forcing a relationship. It is not about waiting for a person who refuses to choose you. This is about a truth that remained buried because two people were afraid of what would happen if it finally came into the light. And last Tuesday, someone finally opened that door. The room was quiet. The woman in the blue coat sat across from a person who had spent months avoiding one particular subject. You. At first, they talked about ordinary things. Work. Life. The past. Nothing seemed unusual. Then the woman asked one question. What is the one thing you still haven't said? The person looked down. Their fingers tightened around their phone. For several seconds, they said nothing. Then your name escaped their lips. The woman immediately noticed the change in their voice. This wasn't casual. This wasn't nostalgia. This was unfinished. She leaned forward. Tell me about them. The person took a slow breath. And what came next wasn't what she expected. They didn't begin with your first meeting. They didn't talk about your appearance. They didn't describe the happy memories first. Instead, they said, I ruined something I was terrified to lose. The woman stayed silent. The person continued. I thought disappearing would protect them. That sentence changed everything. Because now the story wasn't about someone who simply walked away. There had been a reason. A reason you were never given. The woman asked, protect them from what? The person looked toward the window. I can't tell you. Why? Because I don't know who is still watching. The woman froze. Watching? She had expected heartbreak. Regret. Maybe unresolved feelings. She hadn't expected fear. The person opened their phone. They scrolled through an old conversation. Your name appeared on the screen. They didn't open it. They simply stared at it. Then they whispered, I still have every message. The woman asked, even after all this time? Yes. Why? The answer came quietly. Because deleting them felt like admitting they were gone. That sentence landed differently. The woman looked at them. You don't believe they're gone? The person shook their head. No, then where are they? I don't know. Another pause. Then the person said something even stranger. But I know they think I stopped caring. The woman looked directly at them. Did you? No, then why did you let them believe that? The person closed their eyes. Because someone told me I had no choice. There it was. The first real crack in the story. Someone had told them to stay away from you. Someone had given them a warning. And they had listened. But the woman wasn't satisfied. Who? The person didn't answer. She asked again. Who told you? Still nothing. Then their phone vibrated. They looked at the screen. One new message. No name. No profile picture. Just a number. The message contained 4 words. Don't say their name. The person immediately locked the phone. The woman stared at them. You received that just now? Yes. Does this happen often? The person nodded. Whenever I get close to telling the truth. Now the woman understood why they had come to her. They weren't simply looking for advice. They were looking for permission to speak. And she was about to hear something that had been buried for a very long time. She asked, "When was the last time you saw them?" The person hesitated. Then answered, "They don't know I saw them." The woman leaned back. "When?" "Recently." "Where?" They named a place. The woman went completely still. Because she knew that place. More importantly, she knew you had been there too. The person continued. "I saw them from across the street." "What did you do?" "Nothing." "Why?" "Because they looked happy." The woman frowned. "That stopped you?" "No," the person swallowed. "What stopped me was the person standing beside them." The woman stared. "Who was it?" "I don't know." "You didn't recognize them?" "No, but you knew something was wrong." "Yes." "How?" The person looked at her. "Because that person was holding something that belonged to me." The woman said nothing. The room suddenly felt smaller. "What was it?" The person reached into their pocket. They pulled out a small object. Placed it on the table. The woman recognized the shape. But she didn't understand why it mattered. "Where did this come from?" "They gave it to me." "Your soulmate?" "Yes." "When?" "The last time we were together." The woman turned it over. There was a tiny mark on the back. A symbol. She stared at it for several seconds. Then her expression changed. "You've seen this before?" The person nodded. "Where?" "On the photograph." "What photograph?" The person didn't answer. Instead, they opened their phone again. This time, they showed her an image. It was you. Standing somewhere alone. The woman looked at the date. Her eyes widened. "This was taken last Tuesday." "Yes." "When?" "Before I came here." The woman looked back at them. "Who took it?" "I don't know." "Then how did you get it?" The person stared at the photograph. "Someone sent it to me." "Who?" "No name." "What did they say?" The person turned the screen around. There was one sentence. "Your soulmate is closer than you think." The woman slowly looked up. And for the first time that evening, she seemed genuinely unsettled. Because she knew something the person didn't. She knew the photograph wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was the background. Behind you, barely visible through the glass, was the reflection of a woman wearing blue. The same blue coat she was wearing right now. The person noticed her expression. "What?" She didn't answer. "What did you see?" She turned the phone toward herself. Zoomed in. There she was. In the reflection. Standing behind you. But that was impossible. She had never met you. At least, she thought she hadn't. The person stood. "You know them." "No, then why are you in this picture?" The woman couldn't answer. She stared at the image. Then something inside her memory shifted. A place. A face. A brief encounter months earlier. Someone had once approached her. Someone who had asked a strange question. "Have you ever heard of this person?" They had shown her your name. She had forgotten about it. Until now. The woman in the blue coat slowly sat down. The person asked, "What aren't you telling me?" She looked at them. And finally said, "I have heard your soulmate's name before." "From whom?" She hesitated. "Someone who told me never to repeat it." The person stared at her. "Why?" The woman looked toward the door. Then back at the photograph. "Because they said the moment your soulmate's name was spoken in the wrong room, everything would begin again. The person whispered, "What would begin?" The woman didn't answer. Her phone vibrated again. Another unknown message. She looked at it. Her face went pale. The person reached for the phone. "What does it say?" She turned the screen toward them. 5 words. "It's already started. Leave now." Neither of them moved. Then the woman looked directly into their eyes. And said the one sentence that would change the entire story: "You are not the person they are trying to find." A pause. "You are the person they are trying to warn." And somewhere else, you were about to receive a message that would connect your name to the woman in the blue coat. The message remained on the screen. "It's already started. Leave now." Neither of them moved. The woman in the blue coat slowly placed the phone on the table. The person across from her looked toward the door. Then back at her. "What exactly has started?" She didn't answer. "Tell me." Her expression was serious now. "Your soulmate has been looking for the truth. And someone else has been making sure they never find it." The person stared at her. "Who?" "That is the question you should be asking." "I am asking." "No. You're asking for a name." She leaned closer. "You need to understand the reason first." That sentence changed the atmosphere. Because suddenly this wasn't about identifying an enemy. It was about discovering why so many people had been keeping the same secret. The person picked up the photograph again. Your face filled the screen. "You said you've heard their name before." "Yes." "When?" "Months ago." "From whom?" The woman hesitated. Then she said, "From someone who claimed to be protecting them." The person frowned. "Who?" "I never saw their face." "Then how did you communicate?" "Messages." "Anonymous?" "Yes." "And you trusted them?" "I didn't." "Then why listen?" The woman looked down. "Because they knew things about your soulmate that nobody should have known." That answer silenced them. "What kind of things?" "Private memories." "Which ones?" She named one. The person immediately recognized it. Then another. And another. Every detail was accurate. Not something someone could guess. Not something found through casual research. These were moments only a handful of people knew. The person whispered, "How?" The woman shook her head. "I don't know." Then she opened a drawer. Inside was a small notebook. She placed it on the table. "Everything they told me is here." The person opened the first page. "Your name." Second page. "Another detail about you." Third page. "A date." Fourth page. "A place." The deeper they went, the more familiar everything became. Then they reached a page marked with a black line. The handwriting underneath was different. It said, "Do not allow these two people to meet again until the truth is ready." The person looked up. "Who wrote this?" The woman answered quietly. "I don't know." "But you kept it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because every time I tried to throw it away, something happened." "What?" The woman stared at the notebook. "Your soulmate would contact me." The person froze. "They contacted you before?" 3 times. "About what?" "About you." "Why?" They were trying to understand why they couldn't move on. The person looked away. "And what did you tell them?" "The truth." "What truth?" "That they were still emotionally connected to you." The person swallowed. "What happened after that?" "They stopped contacting me." "Why?" The woman reached for the next page. "Because someone told them I was dangerous." A long silence followed. The person slowly sat down. So whoever has been interfering, yes. They knew about you too. Yes. And they knew about us. Yes. The person stared at the notebook. How long has this been happening? The woman answered, long before you realized. That sentence hit hard. Because it meant the strange events hadn't started recently. The distance. The misunderstandings. The warnings. The sudden silence. Someone had been moving pieces behind the scenes. But then the woman noticed something. A page was missing. She flipped through the notebook again. One page had been torn out. That's strange. What? There was something here. What was written on it? I don't remember. The person looked at the torn edge. Someone had removed it recently. The paper fibers were still fresh. Then they heard a sound. A soft knock. Both turned toward the door. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Nobody spoke. The woman stood. Don't open it. The knocking came again. This time louder. The person whispered, who is it? No answer. Then a voice came through the door. I'm here for the envelope. The person looked at the woman. She immediately understood. Someone knew about it. The mysterious envelope. The same one containing your name. The person moved toward the door. The woman grabbed their arm. Don't. What if they know where my soulmate is? They may. What if they're in danger? They may not be. The person stared at her. You're asking me to sit here while someone who knows about them is outside? No, she lowered her voice. I'm asking you to think. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then footsteps. Moving away. The person waited. 1 second. 2. 3. Then they opened the door. Nobody was there. Only a small envelope on the floor. They picked it up. No name. No address. But there was one symbol. The same symbol from the object. The same mark from the photograph. The same symbol appearing throughout the story. The woman saw it. Her face changed. Put it down. Why? Because I know that symbol. From where? She looked at him. From the first message I ever received about your soulmate. The person stared at the envelope. Open it. No, why? Because the last time I opened something carrying that symbol, she stopped. What happened? Someone disappeared. The person went completely still. Who? The woman looked toward the window. Someone who knew the truth. The room fell silent. Then the person slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Not of you. Not of the woman. Not of the soulmate. It was a photograph of a place. The same old place from years ago. The place where you and your soulmate had once made a promise. The person recognized it instantly. But there was something else. A date written beneath the image. Tomorrow. They looked at the woman. Tomorrow? She nodded. Someone wanted them to go there. But why? Before either could speak, another message arrived. This time, it came from your phone number. The person stared at the screen. Their hands began shaking. The message contained only one sentence. Please don't come alone. The woman read it. Then whispered, they know you're going. The person immediately tried calling you. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then someone answered. No voice. Just breathing. The person whispered your name. Silence. Then a faint voice. Not yours. Too late. The call ended. The person looked at the woman. What was that? She shook her head. I don't know. But her expression said otherwise. She knew something. Something she hadn't told them. What aren't you saying? The woman finally admitted it. The person who warned me, who? They once told me something about you. What? She looked directly at them. They said you were the key. To what? She took a breath. To finding your soulmate. The person stared. That makes no sense. It will. How? Because your soulmate didn't disappear. The person stopped breathing for a moment. They were taken away. By whom? The woman looked at the photograph. Then at the mysterious symbol. By someone who believed they were saving them. The person shook their head. No, yes. Then where are they now? The woman didn't answer. The person stepped closer. Where? Finally, she gave them the location. The person recognized it. It was the same place shown in the photograph. The old place. Tomorrow. But then the woman added one final warning. Whatever you do, don't tell anyone you're going. Why? Because someone has been waiting for you to make exactly this decision. The person looked toward the door. And suddenly understood. The mysterious messages. The photograph. The envelope. The warning. None of them were random. Someone had been guiding them toward that place. But the real question was, were they being guided there to find you? Or were they being led into a trap? The woman in the blue coat picked up the notebook. She turned to the final page. There was a sentence she had never noticed before. Written in tiny letters near the bottom, when they finally meet again, the person who separated them will be there. She read it aloud. The person stared at her. Who? The woman looked up. I don't know. Then her phone vibrated. A new message appeared. This time there was no warning. No instruction. Just your name. And underneath it, they already know. The woman slowly looked toward the person. Because somewhere nearby, someone had just seen you. And whoever it was, had decided that tomorrow would be the day everything came out. The message stayed on the screen. Your name. Nothing else. The woman in the blue coat stared at it for several seconds. Then she whispered, they know. The person beside her looked confused. Who knows? She turned the phone around. Whoever has been watching this. A cold silence filled the room. The person read the message again. Your name was still there. No explanation. No number. No clue. Just your name. Then another message appeared. Tomorrow is not about finding them. The person looked up. Then what is it about? A second message arrived. It's about finding out who lied. That changed everything. Because until this moment, they had been searching for you. Now they had to consider something much more dangerous. Someone had been lying about you. For years. The woman locked her phone. We shouldn't go tomorrow. The person immediately shook their head. We have to. That's exactly what they want. Then I'll go anyway. You don't understand. No, they stepped closer. You don't understand what it feels like to spend years believing someone abandoned you, their voice cracked. And then discover they may have been protecting you. The woman said nothing. The person continued. I need the truth. She finally nodded. Then you're going to get it. But not from the person you expect. The person frowned. What does that mean? The woman reached into her bag. She pulled out the old notebook again. Then she turned to a page near the back. There was a handwritten list. 5 names. The person read them. One by one. The first was familiar. The second was someone from the past. The third was someone they had never heard of. The fourth was your name. The person froze. Why is their name here? The woman pointed to the 5th name. That is the one you need to understand. The 5th name belonged to the person who had supposedly disappeared years ago. The person stared at it. That's impossible. Why? Because they're dead. The woman slowly shook her head. Are you certain? The person couldn't answer. Memories began rushing back. The funeral. The calls. The silence afterward. But something never made sense. Nobody had actually seen the body. Everything had been based on what they were told. The woman watched their face. You've just realized it. The person whispered, they could still be alive. Maybe. And they know my soulmate. Yes. How? The woman closed the notebook. Because they were there when everything began. Suddenly, another memory returned. Years earlier, you had mentioned a stranger. Someone who had asked too many questions. You had laughed it off. You said it was nothing. But now the person remembered the exact conversation. You had said, there's someone who keeps appearing wherever I go. They had asked who. You never gave a name. Instead, you changed the subject. At the time, they thought you were simply uncomfortable. Now they understood. You had been scared. The woman in blue asked, did they ever tell you about that person? The answer came slowly. No, did you ever ask? No, why? Because I thought they trusted me. The woman looked down. That may be why they stayed silent. The person looked toward the window. What if they were trying to protect me too? The woman didn't respond. Because she knew the answer. They had both been protecting each other. Without knowing it. 2 people standing on opposite sides of the same secret. Both suffering. Both waiting. Both believing the other had moved on. Then the woman's phone rang. Unknown number. Again. She answered. Nobody spoke. Then a voice whispered, ask them what happened on the bridge. The call ended. The person went pale. The bridge. They remembered it. That was where you had last spoken openly. That was where everything had seemed normal. Until you suddenly became quiet. The person had asked what was wrong. You said, nothing. But now they remembered something else. You had looked behind them. Not once. Twice. As though someone was following. They had dismissed it. Now that memory felt completely different. The woman asked, what happened on the bridge? The person told her. Every detail. Your silence. Your expression. The way you suddenly held their hand. Then your final words, if something happens, don't trust the first story you hear. The person stopped. They had forgotten that sentence. For years. They had completely forgotten. The woman stared at them. Why didn't you tell me that before? I didn't remember. She looked at the notebook. Then at the photograph. Then at the mysterious symbol. Everything was connecting. The warnings. The photographs. The messages. The disappearances. The strange encounters. And now the bridge. There was a pattern. But the pattern wasn't pointing toward the soulmate. It was pointing toward someone else. Someone who had been close to both of you. Someone who had access to information. Someone who could manipulate what each of you believed. The woman finally said the name. The person went completely still. No, yes. That can't be them. You know them. I trusted them. I know. They helped me. That's why they were able to do it. The room became silent. Then the person noticed something. The woman had tears in her eyes. Why are you crying? She answered, because I made the same mistake. What mistake? I trusted them too. The person stared. You knew them? Yes. When? Before I ever heard your soulmate's name. That revelation changed everything. The woman wasn't an outsider. She had been part of the story longer than anyone realized. She had met the mysterious person years ago. She had been given instructions. She had been told to protect certain information. And one instruction had always remained the same: never let these two people discover the complete truth at the same time. The person stepped back. Why? The woman finally said, because the moment you both know everything. She paused. The person who has been hiding behind the confusion loses control. A notification appeared. The woman looked down. A new photograph. She opened it. Her face changed. The person asked, "What is it?" She turned the screen toward them. It was you. Standing outside a building. But this time, you weren't alone. Someone was standing beside you. The person recognized them immediately. The one name they had just discussed. The person who was supposed to be gone. The person believed to be dead. Alive. Standing beside you. The person couldn't speak. The woman whispered, "Now you understand why tomorrow matters." The photograph had been taken minutes earlier. Not days. Not weeks. Minutes. That meant you were nearby. Very nearby. And the person they had been searching for was with you. The soulmate grabbed their phone. "I have to go." The woman stopped them. "Not yet." "Why?" "Look at the background." They zoomed in. Behind you was a sign. A location. The old place. The exact place they had been instructed to visit tomorrow. The person stared. "You're saying they're already there?" "Yes." "Then I'm going." "No, why?" "Because there is another person in the photograph." They zoomed in again. A shadow. Almost hidden. Someone standing farther away. Watching you. Watching the other person. Watching everything. The person whispered, "Who is that?" The woman shook her head. "I don't know." Then the shadow moved. The photograph had been captured while someone was recording. A short video. The woman pressed play. There was no sound at first. Then your voice appeared. Quiet. Almost impossible to hear. You said, "I know you're watching." The video ended. The person stared at the screen. You knew. You had known. You weren't unaware. You weren't helpless. You had been waiting. Then the woman received one final message. She opened it. Her expression completely changed. The person asked, "What now?" She slowly turned the phone toward them. The message said, "Tell them the woman in blue is not the one who knows their name." A pause. Then another message appeared. She is the one who knows why it was hidden. The person looked at the woman. You knew? She nodded. For years. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was waiting for the right moment. What changed? She looked at the photograph of you. You. The person didn't understand. She continued, "You finally stopped running." They looked down. The woman took their hand. "Tomorrow, you will meet your soulmate." Their eyes filled with emotion. But don't expect an apology. Why? Because they are not the one who owes you the biggest explanation. Then who does? She pointed toward the photograph. The person standing beside you. The one everyone thought was gone. The one who had been pulling strings from the shadows. The person who had separated you. The person who had watched both of you from the beginning. The person who knew your name before the soulmate ever spoke it. And tomorrow, they would finally step out of the shadows. But there was one thing neither of them knew. You had already spoken to that person. You had already heard the truth. And you had already made your decision. The woman in the blue coat looked at the clock. Then she said, "Tomorrow isn't when you find them." The person stared at her. "Then what happens tomorrow?" She smiled sadly. "Tomorrow, they find you." And somewhere in the darkness outside, someone was already walking toward the old place. Carrying the final piece of the truth. The piece that would reveal why your soulmate told the woman in blue everything, and why your name had been hidden for so long. The night before everything changed, you were already awake. You couldn't explain why. Nothing had woken you. No sound. No notification. No dream you could remember. Yet something inside you kept saying the same thing. Tomorrow. You didn't know what tomorrow meant. You didn't know who would appear. You didn't know that somewhere across the city, the person you once loved was holding your name in their hands. And you certainly didn't know that the woman in the blue coat had spent years protecting a truth connected to you. But you felt something. A strange certainty that a chapter you had buried was about to reopen. Meanwhile, at the old place, your soulmate had arrived. They stood outside the building alone. The woman in blue had told them not to expect an apology. She was right. Because the person waiting inside wasn't there to apologize. They were there to confess. The door opened. Your soulmate stepped inside. The room was dark. Then one light turned on. A figure stood near the window. The same person from the photograph. The person everyone believed had disappeared. The person who had influenced everything from the shadows. Your soulmate stared at them. "You're alive." The figure nodded. "Barely." "Why did you do this?" No answer. "Why did you keep us apart?" The figure looked down. "Because I knew what was coming." "What was coming?" "You." That answer made no sense. Then the figure explained. Years ago, someone had discovered that you were being watched. Not because of your soulmate. Because of something you unknowingly possessed. Something connected to your family. Something that made certain people interested in you. Your soulmate had become the easiest way to reach you. So the figure made a decision. Separate you. Make your soulmate believe leaving was the only way to keep you safe. And make you believe your soulmate had stopped caring. It worked. Too well. Years passed. The danger faded. But the lie remained. Until recently. The figure finally admitted, "I was supposed to tell you when it was safe." Your soulmate stared at them. "When did it become safe?" "Months ago." "Then why didn't you tell me?" The figure looked away. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "That you would go back to them." A long silence followed. Then the truth finally came out. The person who had separated you wasn't trying to destroy the connection. They were afraid of what would happen if you reunited too soon. But there was another secret. One even they had kept hidden. Your soulmate asked, "What aren't you telling me?" The figure slowly reached into a drawer. They pulled out an old letter. Your soulmate recognized the handwriting immediately. "Yours." Their hands began shaking. "Where did you get this?" "They gave it to me." "When?" "Before they disappeared." Your soulmate stared at the envelope. "You've had this all these years?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because they told me not to give it to you until you were ready." Your soulmate opened it. The first line broke them. I know you think I left because I stopped loving you. They read the next line. That isn't why. Another. I left because I knew someone was watching you. Then, I wanted you to hate me if that meant you would stay alive. Your soulmate stopped reading. Their eyes filled with tears. For years, they had believed the opposite. They had carried resentment. They had blamed themselves. They had wondered what they had done wrong. And now, they were discovering that you had been sacrificing your own happiness to protect them. The letter continued. If you ever meet them again, don't ask why they waited. Ask what they were protecting. Your soulmate looked up. What were they protecting? The figure finally answered. You. The room went silent. Then the door opened. The woman in the blue coat walked inside. Your soulmate looked at her. You knew. Yes. Why? Because they trusted me with the final piece. What final piece? She held up the small object. The same object that had been sitting on the table days earlier. The object you had once given your soulmate. She turned it around. The symbol on the back was not a symbol at all. It was a location code. A place. A date. And a name. Your name. Your soulmate stared at it. What does it mean? The woman smiled. It means they knew this day would come. Your soulmate couldn't speak. The woman continued. They knew you would eventually find out. And they knew I would come here? Yes. How? Because they left instructions. The woman reached into her coat. She pulled out another letter. This one was sealed. Your soulmate stared at it. Is that from them? Yes. When was it written? The woman looked at the date. Last Tuesday. Your soulmate froze. That can't be. It can. Were they here last Tuesday? The woman nodded. They were. Here? Yes. Did you see them? The woman smiled. Yes. Where are they now? The woman pointed toward the door. Outside. Your soulmate stopped breathing. For years, they had imagined seeing you again. But nothing prepared them for this. They walked toward the door. Their hand touched the handle. Then they stopped. What if they don't want to see me? The woman answered, then respect that. And if they do? Tell the truth. The door opened. Outside, you were standing there. For a few seconds, neither of you moved. No dramatic music. No perfect speech. No carefully prepared words. Just two people staring at each other after years of misunderstanding. Your soulmate whispered your name. You heard it. You didn't look away. They took one step forward. Then stopped. I owe you the truth. You said nothing. I thought you left me. Still nothing. I thought you stopped caring. Your eyes changed. They continued. I was wrong. A tear moved down their face. I was wrong about everything. You finally spoke. I know. They froze. You know? You nodded. Not everything. But enough. The woman in blue watched from the doorway. The person who had been protecting you remained silent. Nobody interrupted. Then you looked at your soulmate and said, I waited too. Those 3 words broke years of silence. Your soulmate stepped closer. Why didn't you come? You looked toward the old building. Because I thought you wanted me gone. I never did. I know that now. The past couldn't be erased. The years couldn't be returned. But the lie had finally been removed. And sometimes, that is where healing begins. The woman in blue walked toward you. She held out the final letter. This belongs to you. You looked at it. Your name was written across the front. You recognized the handwriting. Your own. You opened it. There was only one sentence. If you're reading this, then the person who was protecting you finally stopped hiding. You looked at the woman. Then at your soulmate. Then at the person who had spent years carrying the secret. The final truth was now in your hands. You read the last line. And everything suddenly made sense. I never asked them to keep us apart forever. I asked them to wait until we could choose each other freely. You looked up. The woman in blue smiled. Because that was the secret. The separation had never been meant to last. The waiting had a purpose. The silence had an expiration. And last Tuesday, that expiration finally arrived. My child, I am Jesus. And if this story has touched something inside you, remember this: you do not need to chase what is meant for you. You do not need to force someone to understand your worth. You do not need to beg someone to return. Truth does not need manipulation. Love does not need fear. And what is genuine does not require you to destroy yourself just to keep it alive. Archangel Michael says, stand where truth can find you. Do not return to what wounded you simply because you miss it. Do not confuse longing with destiny. Let actions reveal what words once concealed. That is the real message hidden inside this story. The woman in the blue coat knew your name, but she wasn't the person who carried the secret. Your soulmate told her everything, but even they didn't know the whole truth. The person who separated you wasn't the final enemy. They were protecting a truth they didn't know how to explain. And you were never forgotten. You were never meaningless. You were never simply abandoned. There were pieces of the story happening outside your sight. But now the secret is no longer controlling the story. The truth is. And maybe that is why you found this message at this exact moment. Not because a video can guarantee who will return. Not because every coincidence is a supernatural sign. But because sometimes a story gives language to feelings you've never been able to explain. If someone came to your mind while listening, don't write their name. Don't expose your private life. Just comment, I choose the truth. Let that be your statement. Not a promise that someone must return. A promise that you will no longer accept confusion where honesty belongs. And if you stayed until this final moment, remember the sentence that changed everything: I never asked them to keep us apart forever. I asked them to wait until we could choose each other freely. That was the secret. That was why the woman in the blue coat knew your name. That was why your soulmate told her everything last Tuesday. And that was why, after all those years, the story finally came back to you. If you enjoyed this message, please like, subscribe, and stay connected for more.